Dear viewers, imagine slowly, with breath held tight and heart pounding like a clock ticking in the dead of night amid the poor, dark streets of Boston in 1874. A 14-year-old boy with a deformity in his right eyes, white and ghostly like a specter from hell, gleaming under the faint gas lamps, swanders like a bloodthirsty beast on the prowl, his small feet leaving marks on the filthy ground, strewn with refuse and stagnant water. He lures innocent children with their carefree smiles and wide-eyed curiosity, to hidden corners shrouded in fog, binding them tightly with rough ropes, then beating them savagely with leather whips that tear flesh, slashing skin with sharp knives glinting under the pale moon, and biting into tender flesh like a rabid animal from the depths of nightmare. Their screams echo through the thick mist, fresh blood dripping onto the cold, grimy earth. Thus, Jesse Pomeroy becomes America's youngest serial killer, plunging the entire city into abject terror, with newspapers screaming bloody headlines and the public whispering in trembling voices, born from the shadows of poverty and violence, or a soul abandoned by society, woven into a nightmare by neglect and brutality that makes us question the essence of humanity in this chaotic era. Pause for a moment, dear viewers, and feel the chill creep through your skin, for this story is not mere history, but a warning from the yellowed pages, where the blood of victims remains fresh in mankind's memory today. We shall turn the aged, yellowed pages, worn by time and dust from the 19th century, about Jesse Pomeroy, American teenager of 14, accused of murdering and torturing children at the end of the 19th century, when Boston was a bustling yet unstable city, with crowds of immigrants thronging narrow streets, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages, and the stench from polluted waters pervading everywhere. But dear viewers, pause and ask yourselves slowly, with heavy breath, was he a cold-blooded monster born from hell, with hands stained red and a soul black as pitch, or merely a pitiable victim of a chaotic society where abandonment by family, endless poverty with meager meals of dry bread and thin soup, and domestic violence like whipping lashes that draw blood weave horrific tragedies, turning a tender child into a living nightmare? This tale, dear viewers, is not just about gruesome crimes that make hair stand on end, but about the deep flaws in Victorian society, where impoverished children are thrust into shadows, and deviant souls like Jesse's emerge from the cold indifference of adults. We shall explore every detail, from painful childhood days to bloody crimes, to see that history is not dry numbers, but vivid stories whispering through time like wind howling through cobblestone streets. Jesse Pomeroy, born on November 29, 1859, in a working-class family in Charlestown, Massachusetts, a noisy industrial area with textile mills and slaughterhouses echoing with machinery and animal cries, grew up amid whipping lashes from his butcher father that drew blood from tender skin and the icy loneliness from his busy mother who seldom glanced his way. His father, Thomas Pomeroy, a tall man with powerful hands, dyed red from daily animal blood, where cries of cattle and pigs resounded like curses, often drunk after long shifts from dawn to dusk, would lash out in rage, whipping Jesse with leather straps that tore flesh, leaving scars not just on the body but etched deep into the young soul. turning him into an isolated child who wandered alone through cold, lonely streets, avoiding playmates and seeking solace in shadows. Those blows, dear viewers, were not mere physical violence, but profound psychological wounds, filling Jesse with hidden hatred, which he unleashed on weaker victims as revenge. In a vicious cycle of family abuse, his mother, Ruth Ann, a harsh woman with a haggard face from toiling in a cramped tailoring shop where needles and fabrics piled like life's burdens, had little time for her son, busy from morning to night with orders from wealthy clients, leaving Jesse free to explore the surrounding world, a world full of instability, with Irish and Italian immigrants crowding slum areas, shouts from street brawls over scarce jobs, and the foul smell from the polluted Charles River pervading everywhere, making the air heavy like a curse. The first tortures began in 1871, when Jesse, then 12, with a gaunt frame and white-tied deformity from congenital albinism, lured young boys to secluded spots in South Boston's impoverished neighborhood with rotting wooden houses and children, playing on dirty streets with a false smile and promises of candy. He led them to abandoned warehouses or vacant lots behind factories, binding them with rough ropes scavenged from his father's slaughterhouse, and savagely beating them with leather whips or wooden sticks picked from the streets, sometimes slashing with knives to watch blood flow, or biting like a mad dog, making victims scream in agony. The police initially called him the boy torturer, with horrific reports from surviving victims like Harry Austin, an 8-year-old with knife scars on his arm still trembling when recounted, or George Pratt, 6, with red whip marks on his back, making him sob in the hospital. But unbeknownst, after release from Westboro Reform School, where stone walls and strict discipline like whipping devoured childhood, with long days of forced labor in vegetable gardens and wood shops, and lonely nights in cramped cells, he continued with more horrific crimes. Like a storm uncontainable, erupting just weeks after returning home, the investigation revealed darker secrets. Jesse's fascination with dime novels, cheap, thin books sold for a dime, telling of serial killers and violent adventures in the Wild West, with bloody illustrations captivating him and, perhaps, the white-eyed deformity, along with early psychological trauma, turned him into an outcast, mocked by peers as one-eyed devil, seeking power through others' pain as compensation for deep loneliness. The case details from Katie Curran's body hidden in the damp, dark basement with scurrying rats, throat slit by a cold knife spurting blood like a fountain, her small body hastily buried under dirty soil and rubbish, to Horace Millen, lured to the desolate Savin Hill beach with promises of watching ships glide by waves, then stabbed dozens of fatal times with a knife, blood-staining red sand under fading afternoon light, his tiny body left like a broken toy amid salty sea-wind paint, a horrifying picture of a deviant soul nurtured by society's indifference, where poor children were forced into early labor, and souls like Jesse's became symbols for deep flaws in the education and child protection system, making us pause and reflect on preventable tragedies if timely intervention from family, community, and law had occurred in 1874. After Horace Millen's body was found on Savin Hill Beach with fatal deep stabs, dried blood caked under fading sunset and salty sea wind whispering like death. Police swiftly arrested Jesse Pomeroy, 14-year-old, with a cold, twisted smile during interrogation at Charlestown Station, where faint gas lamps illuminated his pale face, making veteran detectives shudder at his eerie calm. But the true climax unfolded in the packed courtroom at Suffolk County Superior Court in Boston, where crowds crammed every seat with shouts and whispers buzzing. Newspapers like Boston Globe and Boston Journal sending reporters to fill rows, and tension thick like an impending storm. Horrific evidence was laid bare before the gaping, trembling audience, surviving torture victims from earlier, like Harry Austin with knife scars on his arm aching still, or George Pratt with red whip marks on his back, making him sob on the witness stand, their screams echoing in the courtroom like curses from hell. Katie Kern's body exhumed from the damp, dark basement with pervasive death stench, causing many in court to cover noses, throat slit by a cold knife, and small body decayed partially, and Jesse confessing calmly, coldly, with even voice, like recounting a mundane tale of hunting expeditions, making Judge Charles Allen, stern-faced under faint gaslight, pause to regain composure. Public fury boiled like a cauldron, newspapers screaming bloody, horrific headlines like "The Boy Torturer Returns with Horrifying Murders," "Boston's Monster Unmasked," and debate raged in society. Could a tender child, despite heinous crimes, be tried as an adult, with death sentence hanging overhead like the Reaper's scythe, or deserve mercy for stolen childhood? Early psychologists, like Dr. Isaac Ray, with theories of innate insanity, argued fiercely with death penalty supporters, while child protection activists called for reform. The judge, after long deliberations with defense lawyer Charles Robinson attempting to prove Jesse a victim of family violence and congenital deformity, sentenced to death by hanging, silencing the courtroom in horror and Ruth's sobs from the back row like a lament. But Massachusetts Governor William Gaston, under pressure from boiling public opinion with thousands of signatures on petitions from humanitarian groups and newspapers and calls for mercy from religious leaders, commuted to solitary life imprisonment. On December 18, 1874, confined in Charlestown Prison's dark cell, where shadows devoured his remaining life, spending time reading from Bible to classic novels and writing futile appeals, becoming a symbol for the agonizing debate on crimes, nature, in children, whether born evil or pushed into hell by society, and whether the legal system is fair when treating children as adults. After sentencing, Jesse Pomeroy lived in isolation until 1932, becoming one of America's youngest and most infamous criminals, with Massachusetts state prisons' cold stone walls witnessing a soul's breakdown. He spent 58 years in solitude, allowed contact only through rare visits and books, writing over 10,000 pages of diaries and appeals, and even attempting multiple escapes but failing. His case is not just the tragedy of innocent victims with echoes of screams through time, like Katie Curran with innocent smile extinguished forever, or Horace Millen with wide-eyed curiosity closed in blood, but a slow warning about emotional deprivation, the warm embraces from parents. He never had family violence, like whipping lashes, drawing blood, and society's indifference, where poor children are thrust into early labor and abandoned, like wandering ghosts on streets. Factors, weaving monsters from tender souls, making us pause and ponder preventable tragedies if timely intervention from family, community, and law existed. Today, Pomeroy's case is studied in criminal psychology as a classic sociopath example from the era, contributing to juvenile justice reform in early 20th century America, with separate courts for children, reminding that history is not past but a mirror for present, where we must protect children from shadows to prevent new monsters. Dear viewers, if this horrific tale makes you ponder, shudder in the dead of night with images of blood and echoes of screams from the past, whisper your thoughts in the comments below. Like whispers from aged pages full of blood and tears, sharing whether you think Jesse was a monster or victim, or what lessons we can draw from this tragedy. Don't forget to like to support such dark historical stories and subscribe today to join me in exploring more Black secrets from the 19th century and beyond, slowly through each video, like turning yellowed notebooks full of horror and life lessons, helping us understand humanity and society better. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next tales, where history's shadows continue to whisper.